how fascism typically takes over a nation by rhetoric. And, fascism, sometimes fascists take over countries by violence. Germany took over France, for example, and Poland, but it didn't last. But the big threat of fascism, obviously once they've taken over a country, fascists, they typically start this expansionistic, stuff. It's one of the threats of fascism. But the big threat is the initial takeover of your country. And they do that with words and speeches and news conferences and rallies and media and money and all of this pointing in one direction, violence in service of the fascist leader. Violence is the principal tool that fascists use. And the cardinal characteristic of fascism is the rhetorical embrace and general appreciation of violence as a political weapon, as a political tool, not just random violence, but political tools. Judge Juan Marchand, for example, just banned Donald Trump from attacking the court staff, the DA's staff, the witnesses, the jurors, but he didn't mention himself. He figured, well, I'm a big guy, I can take care of this. And because he didn't mention himself, he didn't mention any of his own family members, and so Trump has been going after the judge's daughter for 3 days now. This is what fascists do. Can you imagine how you would feel if Donald Trump called out your adult daughter so that suddenly she's getting phone calls and letters and social media posts and emails and things telling her that they're going to rape her, they're going to murder her, that they know where she lives? This is the kind of stuff that happens, right? Getting swatted, getting, phony bomb threats phoned in. This isn't the first time. Whenever Trump finds himself in trouble, fraud and violence follow. Whether it's, getting himself into financial trouble in the 90s, and that's when he started really seriously lying about the value of his property so he could continue to borrow money, even though he was completely bankrupt. Or, right now he's in trouble and he's going after the criminal justice system that's holding him to account. The Secretary of State for Colorado, Jenna Griswold, last night on Chris Hayes' show said the threat of violence is part of their new playbook. But new meaning since January 6, 2021. And I think this is absolutely true. So, let's look at the characteristics of fascism. And just tell me if any of these fail to check the box for Donald Trump. This is the list that I compiled between Umberto Eco, Hannah Arendt, Timothy Snyder, and Ruth Ben-Ghiat. Number one, a romantic idealization of a fictional past, make America great again. Number two, a clear definition of an enemy within who is not quite human, but an other. Trump talking about vermins, rats, animals. He's used these adjectives to describe both immigrants and Democrats and people in the court system. Number three, vilification of the media, the so-called fake news. Hitler called it the Lügenpresse, the lying press. Number four, repeated attacks on minorities and immigrants is a rallying point for followers because shared hatred will bind people together. Number five, disparagement of elections and the rule of law. Why? Because these are minority movements. Fascist movements are always minority movements, at least initially. And so that this is how they seize power. It's, you denigrate the rule of law, and then people go, well, it's okay, I guess. Where was I? Oh, yeah, here. Glorification of political violence and martyrdom. Now you've got the January 6th Patriots and Ashley Babbitt. Hostility to academia. Number seven, and science, leading to the elevation of Joe Sixpack's ability to do his own research. In other words, simple answers to complex questions. Number eight, embrace of fundamentalist religion and moral codes associated with it. Number nine, the rejection of the rights of women and members of the queer community as part of the celebration of toxic masculinity. Number 10, constant lies, even about seemingly inconsequential matters. Hannah Arendt wrote about this in 1978. She said, if everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies. The consequence is that nobody believes anything any longer, which is exactly what they want. It's how you tear a country apart. No, I've lost track of what number I'm at. I think this is 11 or 12. performative patriotism that replaces the true obligations of citizenship, like voting and staying informed, with jingoistic slogans, logos, and mass events. It's a faux populism. And finally, collaboration with oligarchs who claim to be, while claiming to be celebrating the average person. Donald Trump and his MAGA movement click every single box. So did the American Confederacy, by the way, in 1860. So did the American fascist movement in the 1920s and 1930s, although, as Rachel pointed out on Monday, Rachel Maddow, they didn't have the power that the Republican Party has right now. They don't have the numbers or the money. They were a small faction. But this is not our first encounter with fascism here in the United States. So what do we do about this? We recognize and call out the fascists and their movement as fascists, number one. Number two, we debunk and ridicule extremism while ostracizing fascists from polite company. This is what happened with Ronna McDaniel. She just, we don't need fascists in our media anymore. Thank you very much. And number three, support democratic institutions and politicians who promote democracy. And I've got a list in my article of the news sites that I try to read every day. And in addition to the major news media, the Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Post and stuff like that. And then there's great organizations out there, from the Democratic Party to Indivisible to Progressive Democrats of America, Move to Amend, MoveOn.org, Roots Action, Progressive. It just goes on and on. I've got the whole list over on HartmannReport.com. President Biden told us we're at an inflection point in our history, one of those moments that only happens once every few generations, when the decisions we make today will determine the course of this country and the world for decades to come. So, he said, you, me, and every American who's committed to preserving our democracy carry a special responsibility. We have to stand up for America's values embodied in our Declaration of Independence, because we know MAGA extremists have already proven they won't. We have to stand up for our Constitution and the institutions of democracy, because MAGA extremists have made clear that they won't. History is watching, President Biden said. The world is watching. And most important, our children and grandchildren are watching.